YGO Strat single card discussion is going to be talking about some of the cards that have impacted Yu-Gi-Oh! Throughout the years. Today's card, the greatest card name in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Toadally Awesome. Toadally Awesome was first released in Invasion Vengeance in November of 2017. As of this video, it's had two reprints, first in the 2017 Megatins, and again in Maximum Gold in 2020. Toad was first hit on the ban list on the April 2020 lists, where it was hit to 1 presumably out of fear of Toad spam decks being too abusable in the then newly updated Master Rules. It was semi-limited in September of 2020 as Konami realized the card was not a problem compared to the Dragon Link or Infernoble Hand Loops or Eldlik decks that were actually being played at that time, and it finally went back to 3 on the December 2020 ban list, where as of this video it has stayed since. A rank 2 water attribute aqua type Xyz monster with 2200 attack and 0 defense, its effect reads: once per turn, during the standby phase, you can detach one material from this card. Special summon one frog monster from your deck. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a spell, trap card, or monster effect, quick effect, you can send one aqua monster from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then, you can set it to your field. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one water monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. The frog boss monster nobody saw coming with the name Nobody Saw Coming. The fan-translated name for this card when it was first revealed was Treat Toad. This card is based on Kagami Mochi, and if I'm saying that correctly, if not I apologize. Its Japanese name is Mochi Toad, and if I'm not mistaken features two separate puns about the fact that it steals cards and the fact that it's frogs that look like the mochi. I'm not 100% certain, I don't speak the language. Fact of the matter is the pun didn't really work all that well outside of Japan, and due to the fact that the TCG is across America and Europe predominantly, no one would be all that familiar with it. So they decided to give it the single greatest pun name instead in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! And boy, were people pissed. The amount of salt this card's name caused is almost more than its effect has caused. The molding on Reddit in particular will always be a fond memory to look back and laugh at. Its name aside, Toad came out as a surprising bit of support, a powerful Xyz boss monster for frogs of all things, in a set with no other actual frog support, because while there is plenty of synergy, the Paleo cards aren't frog cards. But its strength was enough that it, along with the Paleo cards themselves, made it an immediate contender in the metagame. Its effect to detach a material during the standby phase to summon a frog is great as a means to set up material for its negate effect while it's staying on board, but also in its deck it's great for plays. Summoning Dupe Frog is an easy choice since it makes it so it's the only monster that can be attacked, helping to protect Toad from battle, but you could also summon Swap Frog to send more cards to the graveyard to help set up future plays when comboed with Ronin Totem. And while it didn't see much play, Toad also works great with Treeborn Frog in its native archetype, since its self-revival will always give you a monster to send to the graveyard with its effects. Unfortunately for Treeborn, most frog decks work best with back row these days, and Treeborn doesn't work with back row at all. But if you are playing it pure, it can be a neat bit of endless disruption. Plus the ulti looks too good for me to not mention Treeborn Frog, but that's something else entirely. I do remember when this card came out seeing it as the second big negate boss monster after Cyber Dragon Infinity. They're pretty similar in that they're functionally identical negates with slightly different things that make them problems. Infinity can take another monster as material, essentially giving it endless negates. Toad also can have endless negates as long as you have another aqua monster to send from hand or field with its effect, but the real problem with Toad is that it takes what it negates and then sets it on your field, which changes how you have to get around it. In the case of Infinity, I can often remember using a Regeki to bait the negate and then try and break my opponent's board, but if you try to do that with Toad, they can just take the Regeki and then use it on you on their turn. So not only would you have to try and break their board, but you also have to build your own negate for that Regeki if you were to try to use it, or use resources to pop it, which isn't always easy to do, and wasting resources is a very easy way to lose in Yu-Gi-Oh! This makes Toad an annoying card, because not only is it negating your plays, but it's stealing them as well. And in terms of cards like Regeki, that's one thing to have stolen, but Toad can set monsters to the field as well, meaning you can negate a monster effect and steal it as a means to further keep your opponent from making their plays. If a deck wants to recur monsters from its grave, and you take that monster, it can be a big problem. Taking something like Phantom Knight's Torn Scales, or a Rocket Tracer to prevent it from being brought back with the field spell can seriously hinder the opponent's plays. And that isn't all that makes Toadally Awesome so annoying. No, it has a far more annoying trait than that. It's splashability. Beyond making an awful pun about toads and splashing in water, it being in multiple decks as a negate is part of what makes this card so comparable to Infinity in my eyes. Just like Ptolemaeus made Infinity splashable in Pepe format, Bahamut Shark makes Toad splashable in any deck that can put 2 level 4 waters on board. At the time of making this video, that aspect keeps it in few decks, beyond Mermail or Shark decks, and maybe the odd Marincess build. But back when Toadally Awesome was released, there was a card seeing play in just about every single deck, Elder Entity Norden, a level 4 fusion that when special summoned revived a level 4 lower monster from your grave, essentially turning instant fusion into any free rank 4, and Norden is a water monster, meaning if you played other level 4 waters in your deck, you could splash Bahamut and Toad in just about anything with no issues. Decks like Lightsworn would play Gigabyte as a free summon from hand for generic rank 4 plays, and because it was a decent thing to mill off with your Lightsworn cards to make instant fusion into Toad live. And there was a version of Masked Heroes that used Tin Goldfish to both summon Shadow Mist so as to facilitate Dark Laws, and because as a water monster it worked with both E-Hero Bubbleman or Norden to get out Toad. And because Toad recovers any water monster to hand if it's sent to the grave, that Toad could just send itself and then recover that same copy of itself. So if a Bahamut was still on field, you could use it the next turn to get that same Toad back on the field again. With Norden's eventual ban coupled with Master Rule 4, this sort of wide splashability in decks pretty much died out. But you can be sure that anytime a deck comes around that can make rank 4s and uses water attribute monsters, Toad will likely see play through Bahamut, and someone will complain that Bahamut should be banned. Toad will also see play anytime level 2 Aquas come up, as was seen historically with Paleo decks, and even in Prank Kids. Dropsies is a level 2 Aqua, and if you look at most topping extra decks from Prank Kid builds, with or without the Adventurer engine, Toad is one of the few non-Prank Kid monsters they're playing in their extra deck, because the negate and take is just that good, even 5 years after its release. There are also smaller, more niche things that have come out throughout Toad's lifetime. Could mention things like Nekroz playing Toadally Awesome in Zaborg builds to recover Nekroz monsters from grave, or the fact that Toad has so many top spots and deck lists on ygotopdeck.com because it was one of the most common targets for Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries whenever that card saw play for roughly 3 years or so. Overall, Toadally Awesome is a powerful, splashable negate that since its release has been a great card for end boards, and as Prank Kids have shown as of the making of this video, it's one that has stood the test of time to remain playable even after its debut deck in the meta has come and gone. Put simply, this card is totally awesome. And that's our look at single card discussions, Toadally Awesome. Stay tuned for our next video and feel free to suggest some cards to review or what type of video you'd like to see. Don't forget to like, and as always, subscribe to YGO Strats so you too can become a true duelist.